Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to use the Try It functionality in the CyberArk Identity Developer Portal. When you go to the API reference section and select an API, you'll notice a Try It button which allows you to test an API without having to add the API to your application or to Postman. I'm going to switch to V3 for the latest version of the API documentation and then scroll down to the Enable the Try It functionality section. We see from the instructions that we need to add this URL to the API security on our tenant. So we'll start by copying this URL over here, go to our tenant that we're going to use, and go to Settings, Authentication, Security Settings, and scroll down to API Security, click on the Add button, and paste in our URL. I'm going to remove the HTTPS. Oh, looks like we need to remove that little trailing slash. Oh, I missed the I. Let me copy the URL again. And try pasting it. Let me just make sure it's correct, right, and then save. So next we're going to create our service account. So we'll click on Add User. We'll call it Try It. CyberArk requires an email address for all account creation, even for service account. So what we're going to do is add a fake email address, or you can also add a real email address instead if you want. We're going to need this password in a later step, so be sure to remember the password you entered for the service account. So a service account has been created, so if we go to all service account users, we'll see our Try It account has now been created. So now we're going to go to Roles, System Administrator. We're going to add our service account that we just created into the System Administrator role. So it'll have privileges to perform the actions that we want for the API. In production, you can give the service account fewer privileges by assigning it to a role that has fewer administrative rights. But for demonstration purposes, we'll add this user to a system administrator role for full administrative privileges. All right, so next we're going to go to Web Apps, add Web Apps, and we're going to add a custom OAuth 2 client. Okay, the application name can be anything that you want. And for simplicity, we're just going to copy that and paste it in the name field as well. Okay, we're not going to make any changes here. For tokens, make sure we select client creds. For them, we can also optionally take these two off since we're not going to need it. For scope, for demonstration purposes, we're going to add all. If you want, you can add a limited scope for better security, but for demonstration purposes, we're just going to add all privileges for the scope. And for permissions, make sure we add our service account that we just created to have access to this OAuth 2 client app. Right, so save. So now we're going to go to Actions and create a bearer token. Now we're going to enter the credentials for the service account that we created. All right, so typed in the correct password. Now we got a bearer token. So we're going to copy that bearer token. And then we'll go over to our developer portal. And I'm going to pick a, create user. So I'm going to test this one out. And we'll paste in our bearer token into this field over here on the right. So base URL, we got to modify that to our tenant. So let's go ahead and click on that and remove example and change that to our tenant URL. All right, so let's see, and notice that when we entered the modified the URL, it also modified the URL in the script down below. And it also added the bearer token that we pasted into that field up here as well. So notice this field is, the script is pretty bare right now for creating user. So we have to add all the additional information or parameters from here in the middle. So most of these are optional. So there's only 2 required, which is the name field and the mail. So, but for demonstration purposes, just want to show you what it looks like when we start selecting additional parameters. So it just automatically adds that parameter into the script. Okay, so do we want to send an SMS invite? No, and we're not going to make sure that user doesn't get added to our sysadmin role. Let's call this Chuck. Okay, and see if we want, we can create a password. Which is not required. When they get invited, they'll be prompted with a magic link to log in automatically without a password, and then prompted to create a new password. But just in case, right, if we want to, we can go ahead and add a password in here for test purposes. So we can tell the user, hey, in case that link didn't work, here's your password. Okay, so notice that password got added in here. And let's see, we're not going to send an email invite. And let's just go ahead and go down here. Add an email address. All right. So next, we'll just go ahead and click on the Try It button. When we go to the CyberArk admin portal, we see the user Chuck got created. So I've demonstrated how to use the Try It functionality to easily and quickly test an API without having to add the API to your application or Postman. Hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching.